Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting for Women's HERStory Month. And I am coming to you from Durham, North Carolina. And I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. We're going to get it right started here. And I'm going to do this, and I hope I'm doing it, Mahfam Moeeni-Alarcon, who is Yay! Who is a powerhouse entrepreneur, and we were just talking about that. We're going to reiterate that. With a passion for community and culture, she co-owns and operates Mingle Graze, which is a beloved cheese-focused restaurant in the heart of historic downtown Chandler, Arizona, where she brings creativity and flavor to every dish. And she's also the co-owner of Spin the Bottle, which is where she's sitting right now in Chandler, which is a curated wine and bar retail shop just down the street from Mingle Graze. But her impact doesn't start there. I'm so excited to learn all about this. She's an active leader in her community, serving as the Chandler Arts Commission and as the board chair for the Chandler Sister Cities, fostering connections and cultural exchange. She wears many hats, balancing business, community, and a whole lot of passion. And I'm also glad to say that she's also a member of La Dame Escoffier, Phoenix chapter. I'm North Carolina chapter. So welcome to the show, and I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Tracy, for having me here today. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Likewise. So I want to go back to the question that we started with when we were just about to go live. Is like, when Doralice shared your information with me, and then I went looking for you and looking you up, it said you started selling olives, marinated olives at the farmer's market, but you also had worked at Whole Foods. So can you tell us how you got from selling olives at the farmer's market to Mingle Graze and Spin the Bottle?
Yeah, I believe it's a great story to share to other people who are looking to start their entrepreneurial journey. I started selling marinated olives at the farmer's market with inspiration from working at Whole Foods and seeing how other food artisans got their start. They all started small. Marinated olives was something that I would always bring to potlucks or family gatherings in my early through mid late 20s. And every time people would eat those olives, the marinated olives, even if they didn't like olives, they would be like, wow, your olives makes me like olives. They're marinated. I branded it Olive. I had branded it with like the love of olives. I did it with my sister Massa. So the goal was to kind of like start our own business and sell the marinated olives. But for me, I was like, man, you know what? I need to focus. I really want to open a restaurant. This is me in my 20s. And so after college, I went to culinary school and I wanted to learn all aspects of the industry. So I worked in restaurants, resorts, and then I landed at Whole Foods. So I was the wine buyer and cheese specialist for Whole Foods for 6 years. And I was still on this mission. Like I feel like I've learned everything I need to. I want to open up my dream restaurant. But then hearing the story of the people that started locally here at the Whole Foods, they all started at farmers markets, very small, and that inspired me. I said, you know what, I can't just leap. I need to take these small steps. And so I put up a booth at the farmers market, sold marinated olives, and just to get my feet wet in business. And it was rough because you have this vision that people are going to have this line out the door or line out of your booth because they're just so gung ho. Because I would see other like bakeries or honey booths, and they would have these lines, and I have like one or two people stopping by, or people looking at my product and saying, I don't like olives, and you're kind of like, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong business, And so, but I didn't give up. I said, you know what? If I'm not selling out, I'm going to give what's left of my product to other people. So I would actually go door to door to different bars and restaurants and even resorts and give them samples of my marinated olives and say, here, try these out. See if it'll work for you behind the counter or on your tapas menu. And it worked out. I had a couple of bars that would wholesale my olives from me. Changing Hands Bookstore in Central Phoenix. They started They loved the olives. The owners, Gail and Cindy, were hooked on them, so that was a plus. And then from there, they asked if I could make, soups for their bar or pickles, and so it just kind of snowballed from there. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was my in-laws' neighbor. Their daughter was getting married, and she wanted to have, little mini cheese boards on her cocktail rounds at happy hour, or sorry, cocktail hour. And my husband and I were like, for 100 people, that just seems like too many like little cheese boards. Let's kind of brainstorm. And this is back in 2017, where the grazing table was not a part of the American, culture scene at weddings or events. And so
Uh-huh.
we kind of brainstormed to see what New Zealand and Australia is doing, and they are doing the grazing tables. I would say that was the birthplace of grazing tables. And so we took that
Oh,
idea,
wow.
that inspiration, to create it, and it just kind of snowballed from there. We had wineries that asked us to do their wine release parties with the grazing tables, and then their wine club members. Yeah, so it just snowballed from there.
That's awesome. And I didn't realize, because I did see like grazing tables, and I was immediately, oh my gosh, what happened? Sorry, the screen went away. I immediately thought of just charcuterie boards, but this is that big grazing table where you've got everything and it's beautiful, and I didn't realize that it's relatively new thing in one respect, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely new. People love it. They're still loving it. And just to kind of carry off from that, within a year of just posting about the grazing tables, I was able to quit my job at Whole Foods and take it on full force. And then it was from there, it was opening up the storefront. So
That's awesome. Well, and now it's been 6 years that you've had the storefront open, and you opened just before COVID. So,
yes, a
and
year before COVID.
how did you manage that?
That's a really great question because, unfortunately, a lot of small businesses closed during that time. And for
Mhm.
us, we're like, closing can't be an option, even though our business concept is about bringing people together during a time when people needed to
Mhm.
not be together. So we lost all of our wedding contracts, all of our events, like I was refunding all the money, and I looked at our bank account and I was like, how are we going to do this with, with what's in our bank account? So it was a flip of a switch. Like, okay, right now people need to eat. They're afraid of going to the grocery store. Everybody's working from home. A lot of people don't cook. They're used to going to restaurants. Let's make comfort meals. And so we just had these dinners for families of 4 or more. They would
Mhm.
come, pick up their pot roast dinner, or you know, I would do sometimes culturally inspired foods, and we'd set out that table in front, put the food out there, and they'd go get the food and take it. And that's really what helped us survive, is just pivoting our concept. I mean, we don't, nothing from our menu was going to survive. And then we did specials too, like, get 2 cheese boards for $20. I mean, we weren't making money
Mhm.
off of that. We just needed to bring sales in, and that's what it was
Right.
about.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, and the word pivot, got a bad rap for a long time, but I think it's what we all have to do, in those kinds of times. And
Yes,
and I go ahead.
oh, no, sorry, I was saying, especially as an entrepreneur,
Right.
you
Mhm.
have to always be able to flip the switch. You can't give
Mhm.
up, and you have to really believe in yourself. Nobody else is going to believe in you. If you
Mhm.
believe in yourself, then they're going to believe in you. But if you're hesitant, or you're not sure if something's going to work, well, you're putting that energy out there, and you know you're you're gonna you're not going to get what you want out of it. So
Right. Yeah. So how you mentioned the word culture, and I want to bring this up because a couple of things that I find interesting is one that you found online that these grazing tables kind of started in the Australia area, but you yourself are first generation Iranian American, and then your husband, I want to make sure I get this correct, is, where's my little note to myself here?
Chilean.
Chilean, yes. So
Yeah.
bringing and you fuse all of that together, and American as well, into these grazing tables. And that, can you talk a little bit about that and how important that is in bringing the culture together through the grazing tables?
Absolutely. So at our restaurant, our food isn't Persian food or Iranian food or
Mhm.
Chilean food, but we use the ingredients from our backgrounds to influence the recipes. So we have a roast beef sandwich on our menu that uses these pickles that are inspired by Persian pickling. So it's just kind of mildly there to introduce our customers. They're always like, this food is so flavorful. It's not just your classic regular sandwich. And so we let them know that the ingredients that we use are culturally inspired. Or, Cristobal has this family recipe of his mom's potato beet salad, and it's got this like cult following to it. Or we use barberries in our grilled cheese sandwiches. So barberries, also known as zedish. We make this chutney, caramelized onions, barberries, and cranberries, and put it in our grilled cheese sandwiches. And then moving on into our grazing tables, those marinated olives that, use those spices that I started out with, those are in every single charcuterie board that we do. The grazing tables that we do often are studded with the sandwiches that we have. And really bringing people together with food, just kind of, especially when you have this fear of a group of people or of a culture or a country. When you taste their food, you let go of those fears and you really see the person
Mhm.
for who they are. You let go of those stereotypes, and that's what our goal is with Mingle and Graze. It's bringing the community together. So that's what we want ultimately, is to just uh, stop with the division and
Mhm.
create longer tables.
Oh, I love that. And there was a person I interviewed a couple of years ago too, and when it was refugees, and he's in Toronto, and he's like, these grandmothers and these mothers were coming, and they're like, he gave them a space to come and cook once a week, and share their food culture with everybody. So that's the way they got to know each other, just kind of like what you just said, because you can sit down and break bread and find a new flavor, or find that you actually like olives, because I can honestly tell you I don't like olives, but maybe if I come eat yours marinated, I will. Um, you find something new, and you make a new friend.
Absolutely. And, I want to go back to just my inspiration of doing all this is I was a I was a sophomore in college when 9/11 happened. And that's when, it was like I have to say I'm Italian, my name Moeeni, that sounds Italian. You're almost kind of afraid to say you come from the Middle East, because at that time, everybody was scared, right? There was chaos, you have fear. I mean, people were being profiled left and right. And so I I was working at a coffee shop cafe, and I asked the owner, I said, you know what, I want to do a Middle Eastern night. And here I am, just a college student. And this is before I knew I even wanted to take culinary into my career. I was a chem major wanting to go to pharmacy school, and this was my part-time job in college. And she was like, sure, let's do it. She said, let's bring the community together. And I was in a very small town, Jonesboro, Arkansas, and the tensions were high there. People were afraid of Middle Easterners. They thought everybody's a terrorist. And so we hosted a Middle Eastern night. I brought my mom in to help cook. She made all the different Persian stews. And I was like, you know what? I bet no one's going to show up. I was really, timid about it. I thought, they're probably really scared. They're not going to show up. And we sold out. We filled the coffee shop to about 75 people max, and it was people from the community. And it just felt so good, and because food brought them together, and they would talk about
Mhm.
us, we would talk about you know just our culture, the history that's just so beautiful. The Middle Eastern history is
Mhm.
just so beautiful. And from there, I was really involved on campus with the International Student Association. So then we were inspired to host food festivals with the international students that came from
Wow,
all over
that's
the
awesome.
world. We were able to budget, like give each student $50 to go get the ingredients they needed. And we had, I kid you not, we went to the armory, the ROTC armory on our campus, and 500 people showed up. We would give them plates, and it was this buffet of bringing the community together. This is people that they would be like, we were scared of, when you're in your own comfort zone, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have certain fears or certain stereotypes about people. We had students from all over the world, every single continent. And the food was delicious, and it was just such a great, time to bring people together over food. And so now, as an adult, having a business, I'm really involved in the community. And so that's my goal as being the board chair for Chandler Sister Cities, is just kind of revamping it and hoping that, we can use food, beverage to bring our community together once again.
That's awesome. All right, before we go on, I want to show this from Instagram. HERStory25 said, future plans for expansion. P.S. I'm your old professor from ASU, and I'm so proud of you.
Dr. Hester. I love Dr. Hester. She was my marketing professor at ASU. I'm so honored that she's tuned in. Gosh, are we allowed to cry? It's so, yes, I do want to expand. I'm in a really small space right now. There's only so much you can grow out of 700 square feet. And our goal is to expand and to really take it to the next level of what I want to see Mingle and Graze to be.
Yes. It's awesome. Well, I hope Professor Hester, she's doing a great job. I mean, she's learned a lot from you in marketing. So that's awesome.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Okay, so tell me a little bit about, because you just mentioned it, the Sister Cities program and the Chandler Arts Commission, and then even Les Dames. I'm like, you're deeply involved in those programs. So how do these roles intersect with, you could just kind of touch on briefly, how do they intersect with what you're doing with food and beverage?
So great question. With the Chandler Sister Cities program, I wasn't planning on being the board's chair by any means. I reached out to the city because I wanted to work with the city to do, some kind of food collaborations and exchanges with other countries. And at that time, the city was in this limbo of reorganizing the board. The board had, during COVID, it had just dismantled. And so they pretty much approached me like, hey, we're actually looking for, to grow the board. Would you like to join and possibly board's chair? And so I thought, okay, why not? I said, like, everything has always been a yes for me, to bring on new opportunities. And so right now, as we're building our board and gaining more members, our goal is to bring on more sister cities to bridge that gap with cultures around the world, both with cultural exchanges, education exchanges, and of course, economic exchanges, which is really important to run your city. And then with the Arts Commission, it's an honor to sit on the Arts Commission for the city of Chandler. It's a great way to fund local artists to bring art to our community. So one of the really awesome things that we do is we have the traffic control boxes at every intersection, those just plain metal traffic control boxes. Well, with the Arts Commission funding, we hire on artists, and they put their art on those traffic control boxes, and it just beautifies the city. And then we also are beautifying our city with murals around the city as well too. So funding goes to that. And again, just like food, art brings the community together as well. It tells a story. It can sometimes share a story of loss or a story of gain, and it beautifies your city. So it's an honor to be on both those programs for the city. The Les Dames d'Escoffier for the Phoenix chapter, I'm a proud member as well. And our main fundraising is CCAP, the Culinary Careers program for students. And it's such a wonderful program. It inspires students and young adults to take on culinary careers into their adult life. And I always tell people, and when I'm hiring people at Mingle and Graze, because I also I call our restaurant a teaching kitchen because I really like to teach hospitality to people.
Mhm.
It's teaching you these soft and hard skills that you're going to carry on with you in any career you decide to take. And I'm a strong advocate for, you can say what you want to be when you grow up, but it's okay to constantly change that. And so
Mhm.
for a while, if you love being in the restaurant industry, that's great. And then later, if you want to take on nursing or be a doctor or, a lawyer, a teacher, the sky's the limit with the skills that you're going to gain working in hospitality. So that's my passion project next, is to, um, teach hospitality to students and to young adults, because I think it's so important.
I have a friend, Lynn, that lives in the area, so I will introduce you to her too, because she teaches hospitality event planning classes. So
Oh,
I will introduce you.
amazing. I
Yeah.
can't wait to meet her.
And she has had me for 2 semesters now. She's had her students listen to listen to a episode of Eating at a Meeting, and then they have to report on it. And I listen to their reports and talk to them about what they learned from the episode. And like with 302 episodes now, it's amazing how like one will pick number one and one will pick number 200 or whatever, and what they get out of it. And I think it's so important, like you're saying, is like understanding the hard and soft skills that you learn from this, and from the variety of roles that are in food and beverage and hospitality. People just take it for granted, so I think that's
Yes,
awesome.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? I just had like this brain moment. If Dr. Hester's still listening, she wasn't my marketing professor. She was my HR professor. so she taught me. So Dr. Hester really inspired me that your employees are your number one priority. And, in corporations, the employees kind of get
Mhm.
lost in the shuffle. So as a small business owner, I always tell my employees, I work for you because I want to make sure, you're happy. So I wanted to
Yeah.
rephrase that. I just thought about it right now.
Okay, well, you learned a lot from her, no matter what.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Great professor.
So, how do you, okay, so you have 2 storefronts and you, are on all these boards. You're a mom of 2 and you're a wife. How do you juggle all of this together?
I juggle it because I have an amazing partner. My husband, Cristobal, we do everything together. And I have his mom to thank because she taught him folding laundry, cleaning bathrooms, all of that. Because it is a lot. It's a big mental load for women, especially when you have children, because you do have to think about all these things. But a lot of times, he knows the soccer schedule before I do, and he's got it planned out. And we tackle housework together, because it does, at the end of the day, usually falls on the woman um, in the household to do all of that. And so I can only do it because I have I co-parent. And and then to all the single moms out there, um, it's just, I do see it as being extra work, and sometimes it's just getting that village. So whether it's a spouse or a
Mhm.
friend, it's just making sure you surround yourself with a village that helps and supports you, because we all have that, hopefully.
Yeah. Actually, because you said the chore thing, I saw a post on LinkedIn today from my friend Elizabeth McCormick talking about comparing the number of hours women do for chores versus men. And it amounted to thousands of hours compared to what men do. And then that relates to our later in life when your kids are watching this happen, and what the value of the dollar, how much we're getting paid versus men, et cetera. I'll share that link because I thought it was really interesting data that she shared. And it was a TED talk that she just did. So
Wow, that's amazing. And I believe it. I
yeah.
can see it, and it's probably, I saw it in my parents' generation, right?
Hmm.
Because my mom did everything as far as all the housework, all the house cleaning, and because
Hmm.
my dad was focused on the career. But then if you're a woman, you're also having a career and working on the housework. It's too much. You really can't.
Yeah.
You're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, and I think also teaching our kids, I don't have any kids, but we always griped about having to do chores, but it teaches you those things that when you streamline that, you actually can become more efficient later on in life, and it does help. But it is a village across the board, whether it's your kids, your spouse, or who your mom, right, or
Your
whoever.
parents,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
and
just thought
just
it
kind
was.
of.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, it was interesting to listen to her thing today, but we can't do it all by ourselves.
No, we can't. It's like running a business. If you think about it, you
Right.
can't do it all yourself. You have to delegate. So whether you have
Right.
kids, or if you do need your siblings to come and help, just like with babysitting, or so it's a lot of delegating.
Exactly. Okay, so kind of a little bit of a tangent, and tying right into that in the same way, is that running a business requires a lot of sacrifices. And you just said your husband, has the soccer schedule before you do. And, what have you given up along the way, and what has been the most rewarding from that?
So when I was starting out, even at the farmers markets, the sacrifices was I missed out on our son's soccer games. At the time he was 6 years old, and farmers markets are on Saturday mornings. And so
It's true.
that
Yeah.
I sacrificed that, being there for the games, but sometimes that would make some of the other games. So it's just kind of this tug of war. As a woman, it's hard because then you have that guilt comes in that you're not enough, and but you just have to kind of switch it and say, you know what, I'm doing this, I'm sacrificing this to get us to this point. And other sacrifices were, starting the business. People think it's so glamorous when you get to say, I quit my corporate job to start my business. There's nothing glamorous about it, because you quit that comfort, you quit that paycheck, health insurance, 401k, and you're starting this business that you're not even bringing in money for yourself. You're putting all of that back into your business. And so the biggest sacrifices were starting that business and giving up on a lot of the fun, I would say, of knowing that you're getting that paycheck in, and the uncertainties of owning a business, because anything can affect your small business, from the economy to a pandemic to your own personal health, because you are wearing all the hats. So a lot of sacrifices come to it, but it's, for me personally, for some people it's not worth it. So they're fine, they're okay having their jobs, and that is absolutely great, because we need all areas, small business, people who work, corporate, to run an economy, right? But I like the risk. I'm a risk taker. I like challenges. I like to fly by the seat of my pants a lot of the times. I think that's why entrepreneurship works for me. I'm always just kind of thinking of the next thing, how to make things better, how to improve, but also being happy and satisfied where I am today, because you have to be happy with what you're doing. Where you want to get to isn't going to bring you happiness. You have to be happy right now. And so you should never sacrifice your happiness. Yeah. And that's what I teach my kids too. I say, you have to be happy right now. And of course, we're human, we have different emotions, but just really content with your life. And then everything else is just going to follow through for you. But you can't say, once I get to XYZ, I'm going to be happy. You're never going to be happy, because you're always going to chase. So,
well, and then you've reached that goal, and then what's that next step, right? And like, because you want to improve as an entrepreneur, and as a business owner.
Improve. Absolutely, you always want to improve. There's always room for improvement. For me personally, my next step is always, how am I giving back to the community? How can I inspire others? Because I truly am happy with where I personally am for myself today. I want to bring that. I want to see that happiness in other people around me in my community. And so that's always my next step. And that is going to be infinity, because there's always room to help others.
100% agree. Okay, so I want to do a little bit of a pivot here, but as a woman in the food and beverage industry, and you started out in a coffee shop, and then you worked at Whole Foods, and now you co-own the restaurants with your husband. Have you encountered any moments as a woman where you had to break barriers, and how did you navigate those challenges and push forward?
Yes, it's definitely, there are a lot of barriers to break in the hospitality industry. And like most industries, it is run by men. I think a lot of times women feel like they have to be 100% ready to start something, where I think there's a statistics, but don't quote me on it. A man is 20% ready and takes on the challenge, right? Where we're like,
Mm.
and I see that in myself. I was like, okay, after college, I'm going to culinary school. Then I'm going to work in all these different areas before I'm ready. Um, but the barriers for me the challenges had always been like, how, and I would get this question with other people, and it was usually men, like, how are you going to balance your family life as an entrepreneur owning a restaurant? Those are long hours. And it's just like, really? Like, you weren't gonna ask my husband that, here I am.
Mhm.
I started my business pregnant, selling at the farmer's market, working 7 days a week, so yeah, I can do it. I remember when I was trying to move up the ranks at Whole Foods, I wanted to have this be more of like the metro chef for the company. And one of the first questions that was asked by an executive was, "You have a young child. How are you going to take on this role and carry on with your family?" And I was just like, "What?" And really, I mean, without a beat, I was just like, "Well, I have a village. I have my husband, and I have my in-laws, and I have family." Like, and I just, that really catapulted me of like, I need to do this for myself now, because I'm going to have these barriers. And so sometimes when you break barriers, it means stepping away from that situation and creating an opportunity for yourself.
That's such a great way to look at it, because it's like, okay, that should be your leverage, right? That should be your push forward and saying, no,
Yeah.
I can do this, Yeah,
Yeah.
we can all do this. Yeah.
We find
And
ways to do it.
we do. We really do.
Yeah.
And why stop? Right? Just because somebody says no, just keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Yes,
Who
absolutely.
Okay, so we were chatting about Dr. Hester, but who else has significantly influenced you in pushing forward, whether it was personally or professionally? And are there any women in the industry that you admire that have helped you do that as well?
I always ask myself that question too. It's like, who is my true inspiration? But it really goes back to my mom and dad. They always pushed us. My dad would, at a very young age, he would have us girls, because we're three girls, and he would have us get a sheet of paper, draw a timeline, where you are now, where you want to be, how to get to that step. And my goals always change. When I was 8, I wanted to be a famous actress, so that didn't work out. Then it was, time for high school. Okay, what's next? College. What are you going to do after that? So for me, I thought about the traditional path of, getting a career in the health field. So it was being a chemistry major, hopefully go to pharmacy school. But even when I shifted that and told my parents, like, I'm not taking the traditional route, I want to go to culinary school, open a restaurant, they were scared. They were scared of that idea, because, my dad's a business professor, and he's like, restaurants have a big failure rate. You should have your backup plan, be a pharmacist and own a restaurant. And I was like, that just sounds like so
And
much
then
work,
who's going to
Dad.
ask
I'm
you how
not
you're going to
doing it.
handle all that, right?
Exactly. Who's going to handle all that? Yeah. But even, they were hesitant, but they were my number one cheerleaders, and they supported me from day one. And they were there to support me throughout. And so they're my inspiration. My family has always been my inspiration, my cultural background. I would say if you've ever met an Iranian or Persian person, hospitality is in our genes. It's just what we love to do. We're always hosting parties. If you ever go to an Iranian's home for dinner and it's just you'll see this large feast and you're like, who else is coming? They're like, no, this is for you. So it's just in my blood, it's just in my blood to feed people and to be hospitable. And it goes back to my roots and to my parents.
That's
But in the
awesome.
industry, culinary industry, I've always looked up to Alice Waters and what she's done and what she's created with just, clean food, farm to
Right.
table. So I would say she's been an inspiration for sure.
Okay, so that's a really good segue into my next question. Talking like sustainability and inclusion at the table. And I know I read somewhere, that you were really, and I'm really interested in this on a grazing table. How do you handle allergens and things like that? But the sustainability of your food, and I mean, do you get your olives from Arizona, or how do you bring that sustainability practices into both restaurants? There was a lot in one question.
That's okay. That's a bulk of what we do. Actually, we're mindful entrepreneurs, mindful restaurateurs. Restaurants are one of the number one producers of waste. They're trying to not waste because that also cuts into your food cost. So, when it comes to preparation of food, we would rather prep every day than every other day and then throw things away for freshness and quality. The ingredients are really important to us. So I think my time at Whole Foods learning all about the ingredients that go into your food. So the less processed it is, the better it is for you, the better it is for the environment. And then composting. We take pride in composting. We are one of very few restaurants in the Valley that composts. It's an extra service you have to pay. Again, restaurants work on really small margins, but the big picture is what's really important. And so limiting landfill waste is important to us. Recycling, we recycle everything. And going back to the compost company we use, everything goes into the compost. Receipt paper, the boxes that our gloves go into, that all goes into compost. It could technically go into recycling, but for us, compost is important first. And then sourcing ingredients. Where are we sourcing it from? Our meats are uncured. The bacon that we use it comes from Beeler's pork from Iowa. So no nitrates or nitrites, but also they're happy pigs. So they're not crated. They get toys, and people laugh when I say that, but that's really important. We are also taking the steps to go, taking it one step further and using halal beef. The practice of halal is also very sustainable. It's also very kind to the animal. One of the practices is you do not kill the animal in front of the other animals. You do not even sharpen your knife in front of the animal. So it's very humane to the animal. And so I really like that practice. And then going to our wines, we don't bring in the mass-produced wines that put all these preservatives and sugars into the wine, because wine labels don't need to list those ingredients like food labels do. Our beers that we carry, just straight Arizona local beer, right? Sustainable. It's not traveling very far. And then cheese. Cheese is a superfood. A lot of times people are afraid of cheese because they think it's bad for you, it's fattening or this, but it's very high in protein. Good quality cheese is very high in protein. It's great for your gut health, and everybody should be eating cheese. So.
Except for those who are allergic. Yes.
Oh, yes. And then going back to that, I do want to mention, and I always tell people to talk to your dietitian or your doctor. A lot of people do have, of course, dairy allergies. So we help them in talking about goat's milk cheeses or sheep's milk cheeses, and even some cow's milk cheeses don't have that lactose, because as it ages, the lactose evaporates. Parmesan cheese doesn't have any lactose, but it is a cow's milk cheese. But of course, yes, there are dairy allergies that go beyond the lactose.
Right.
And so we are mindful. So it's actually one of the things that we do when we take orders that you're probably not going to see at other restaurants. We always ask, are there any allergies? And so if it's celiacs, we do have gluten-free bread, and we practice true as best we can to be allergen free. We say we're not an allergen free facility, but let's say you want a grilled cheese sandwich on gluten-free bread, and if you let us know you're celiac, we say give us a few extra minutes, but we clean the whole flat top, change gloves, wash the spatulas and everything, and do the best that we can to accommodate that allergen. Same goes with nuts. Once I had somebody that had a strawberry allergy, which is a thing, and I had put the cucumber was sitting next to the strawberry that we put in the water, so I had to immediately take that away. So certain allergies that you don't even think would be an allergy, but we take pride in respecting people's dietary restrictions.
That's awesome. And I mean, labeling, yeah. But like grazing tables and charcuteries always get me too, because there's so many allergens on the same tray. So have you done it? And I've seen it done, like, here's the section that has the cheeses and here's the section that has the pork. Because even like the halal, you're using halal beef, but some of those, they can't eat pork. So how do you manage that?
So that the halal beef would be more for our sandwiches. And then if we do have somebody who doesn't eat pork, we do a vegetarian cheese board. So no meat, we just keep it cheese focused, and we'll have different dips and veggies. Let's say if we're doing a grazing table, they say, well, we don't know what dietary restrictions people have. We'll dedicate one board or one section to gluten-free, nut-free, vegetarian, just kind of hits the classics of the allergens and keep it separated. And then also, it is a grazing table, so if that person does have a severe allergy, for them to maybe avoid it, and we can do their own individual box separately for them. So we accommodate.
Yeah. No, and I'm not trying to point fingers, but no, I like that idea because, it allows them to still participate, with something of their own in a different way, and I love that. So, because you can do them in a variety of different ways. So very cool.
Yeah, and you don't want to single anybody out. We're in hospitality. We want to feed everybody. We don't want to we don't want to have that mindset of, well, just bring your own food. But please bring not in a restaurant, but if you're at an event, bring your own food if you have a severe allergy and you can't even get food from a place that's not completely allergen free, but we will do our best to accommodate. Right.
Yeah. No, and I love that. We have a bunch of people on Instagram over here. RS Communications, Reading Kelly, PK Proco, Travel Meets Events joined. Hello, everybody on Instagram. I can't pull them up over here onto StreamYard, but thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions for us, let me know, and I will post them onto the chat or onto the front there. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and a community hub, and that's kind of really what a grazing table allows you to do. It's people are sharing the same platters and the same foods, etc. But you've made your restaurants into more than just a restaurant. You've made them into community hubs. Can you share how important that has been for your growth of the company and how that has impacted Chandler, the city that you're in?
I love our city that I'm in. Yes, it has, because I call Mingle Graze tiny but mighty. We seat just 26 people, but with what we do, especially the grazing tables and the sandwich platters, we go to you. And so we get to be part of your home, your community, your event. And so it's been a wild ride of, when you're I say small, I don't mean small like in a small way, but we are a small mom and pop restaurant, but we do such great big things because we even go beyond our city of Chandler. We've been to Sedona with what we do. I've worked with, Page Spring Cellars out in Cottonwood, doing events that benefit other women, nonprofit events. And we're all over, and we want to get all over. We want to have Mingle and Grazes all over as well to expand on bringing that community together over great food, great wine, local beer and to create conversations. And what I love about being so small right now is that when people are dining, they'll just kind of look at the other person's table. Oh, what are you having? Oh, I'll have that next time I'm here. And it creates conversation with people. So you're not so in your own little space. You are when you're having lunch or dinner at Mingle and Graze, you're actually having lunch with everybody there because our tables are so close together, and it gets you out of your box, out of your shell.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to close it out with having you. If your impact on the food and beverage industry was turned into, I'm going to say a dish, but I'm actually going to say turned into one of your grazing tables, what would it be and why?
Okay, that's a great question. I would create this big picnic, but like on tables, like a long table where 200 people can come. And then on that table, it's just going to have food from all different parts of the world and cultures, and a grazing table of foods. And then it would have a little like note card of like getting to know these foods. Why is it important to this culture? Is it this ingredient that is indigenous to this region? And it kind of gets you to open up to the different people around the world. And then I want it to also be surrounded by the people from all over the world as well too. And they're just having these conversations, breaking bread together, seeing that they have more in common than not, and really hoping that this event, this 200-person event, everybody leaves with more than just one friend, and then to continue it and to grow it, to make it thousands of people. I don't know. That would be my.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic because it is. I mean, food feeds us and food helps us grow. I mean, in more ways than one, right? Not just grow as human beings and, but grow as community members, etc. Yeah.
Spiritually, it just kind of expands your mind,
exactly.
it just expands your mind. And I really do think it's easy because even I get myself in that boat where sometimes something might scare me. If it's a food, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to eat that. And then you eat it. And then you think about the person who eats it. It's been part of their life and their culture. And then you really just get to empathize, you have that empathy and you understand them. And it's exciting. Food's exciting,
it is. Yeah.
And it should be accessible to everybody. That's my take. Food should be accessible. It shouldn't be a political movement. It shouldn't be taken away from people. Everybody needs to eat good, decent food. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be clean. And it's on us as restaurateurs, as entrepreneurs, as even citizens of the world to make sure everybody has access to food. No one deserves to go hungry, and especially children and the elderly. So that's my biggest takeaway too. We talk about food as if it's accessible, but reminding ourselves it really is not accessible to a lot of people right now, even across the world right now. So
yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have met you. And I need to come out to Arizona again and visit you. And let's see, I've got you can connect with Mahfam on Instagram at Mingle and Graze or Spin the Bottle AZ. Follow them there. And you can get to her websites for both restaurants or both shops from your Instagram handles, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. This and for being part of my Women HERStory Month. I do love educating people on the women behind the scenes that are feeding us and educating us and advocating for us across the globe. So I appreciate you joining me for that.
Thank you, Tracy, so much. You're welcome into Mingle and Graze and Spin the Bottle anytime you're here. So please let me know.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Pull a chair up for you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. There are going to be 2 more episodes this week because I'm trying to jam as many women in this month as possible on Wednesday and Thursday. So stay tuned for those posts. And until then, check out Mingle and Graze and Spin the Bottle on Instagram and their websites. And if you're a meeting planner and you're doing an event in the area, please hire them to bring a grazing table to your event. That would be awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Until then, stay safe and eat well, and I will talk to you soon.